King 504 coming at you from the Game Kingdom, and I got a question to ask you. Have you ever sat down and thought to yourself, I want to play a game, but I don't know exactly what game to play? Another question I want to ask you. Do you want to play a game? Something with thrill, something that will make your heart race, something that will make your thoughts be filled with anxiousness and anticipation of what could happen next? Something that has some intense violence, some blood and gore, something that will make your blood chill with fear, something that will give you nightmares.
Well, guess what? In this video, we're going to be talking about 10 of the most influential and most popular series of horror video games on the planet. So without further ado, this is your boy Game King 504. Let's get on with the video, shall we?
Number 10.
First up to take a spot on this list is a video game series that hasn't been seen and heard from since its last known release back in the year 2002, but it still to this very day heavily influences the survival horror genre as a whole and is still loved by many fans around the world. The Clock Tower video game series is a survival horror franchise known for its atmospheric tension and its point-and-click gameplay. The series first began with Clock Tower that was released back in the year 1995 for the Super Famicom and gave us 3 sequels shortly after that. In the year 1996, we were able to see Clock Tower 1 that was released for the PS1. Clock Tower 2, or otherwise known as The Struggle Within, was released in the year 1998 for the PS1 as well. And in the year 2002, we got the last known sequel called Clock Tower 3 for the PS2. Now, it also gave us some spin-offs such as The Haunting Ground, which came out in the year 2005 for the PS2, and Nightcry that was released back in the year 2016 for Windows. Now, these games haven't seen the light of day due to the fact that, well, they were receiving mixed reviews, even though they were highly praised for its high levels of presentation and horror elements, but it was criticized for its cumbersome and its old and considered even ancient style of gameplay due to the fact that, well, point-and-click games aren't really all the rage anymore when it comes to horror fans now. The games were mostly developed by Human Entertainment and also Capcom as well because they wanted something to kind of rival the Resident Evil series that was back in the day. Nowadays, we don't hear too much about Clock Tower. Up until just recently, LRG, or otherwise known as Limited Run Games, is handling a considered reboot of the series coming to the Switch, and some other sequels later down the road hopefully will come because of this. But at least we're getting something of a revival for the franchise due to the fact that, well, we're going to see Clock Tower being put onto the Switch. Even though the games are kind of considered ancient, I do highly recommend playing those games just to get a taste for them.
Number 9.
Taking the number 9 spot on this list is another set of video games that hasn't been seen and heard from for fans in a long time. The Suffering video game series that was developed by Surreal Software is a horror franchise known for its crazy horror tactic-based combat and its psychological horror-based storyline. The series consists of 2 main titles: The Suffering that was released back in the year 2004, and a year later, the game called The Suffering That Ties That Bind was the sequel. The first game introduces players to the character named Torque, a death row inmate at the notorious Abbott State Penitentiary where he navigates the prison now overrun by grotesque monsters and supernatural phenomena. The game cleverly incorporates a morality system where players' choices influence the story and his actual appearance. The narrative unfolds with a deep exploration of Torque's past, his mental state, and a dark history about the prison that he is residing in right now that he's trying to escape from. The Suffering That Ties That Bind picks up the story following Torque's escape from the island prison and his journey to the decaying streets of Baltimore. The sequel devolves from Torque's actual further descent into madness and explores themes of guilt, redemption, and the consequences of one's actions. The game maintains the horrific, intense atmosphere and its crazy combat that its predecessor, while expanding the lore of the malevolent forces known as the Creature. Both games are noted for its unique take on psychological horror, blending traditional jump scares with a deeply unsettling atmosphere that would make your skin crawl. Overall, these games didn't make a true enough impact on the industry as some other horror games may have done, but these still remain as some of the best games that you could possibly play if you're into horror and if you like seeing some crazy monsters that will mess with your mind in so many different ways. Hopefully these games get remade one day because they'll give you a memorable experience that you will never ever forget once you play them.
Number 8.
Since its debut back in the year 1992, this video game series that was developed by Infogrames, or otherwise known as Atari to this day, has been considered the pioneer of the genre survival horror as a whole and has influenced many horror games to this very day. Alone in the Dark is a pioneering survival horror video game series that was introducing 3D polygonal graphics and a cinematic presentation that the world has never seen before. Players will often assume the role of an investigator by the name of Edward in most of the installments, exploring haunted environments, surviving puzzles, and battling supernatural entities. The franchise has evolved into various different installments, and we've seen a lot of different sequels along the way, with each game featuring its own storyline and its unique cast of characters. Now, in this year, we actually got an announcement saying that we're going to get a new Alone in the Dark that will be coming out in the year 2024, and since then, the Alone in the Dark series has been credited for shaping the survival horror genre as a whole and inspiring many different other titles out there like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Now, I've never personally played the Alone in the Dark series, but I know these games are very unique, they're crazy scary, and they have just a really huge impact on the horror genre as a whole. And if you've never played it yourself as well, guess what? You're not alone, because like I said, I've never played these games, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some of these to really see what I've been missing. But to those of you who have ever played Alone in the Dark, you guys know what this game series has done for the world, and hopefully the new game that's coming out next year will be completely the best one we've seen yet.
Number 7.
Next up on this list is a video game series that takes a whole different approach to how horror games can be played due to the way its mechanics work. The Fatal Frame series, also known as Project Zero in some regions, is a unique survival horror franchise renowned for its distinctive use of photography as a gameplay mechanic. Developed by Tecmo, the series debuted in the year 2001, and the narrative typically revolves around characters investigating haunted locations plagued by malevolent spirits. In each game, players wield the camera obscura, which is a supernatural camera capable of capturing and dispelling the ghosts that you'll meet. The mechanic adds a layer of tension and vulnerability as players must face spectral threats up close to effectively combat them. The series places emphasis on atmosphere, psychological horror, and a chilling narrative, drawing inspiration from Japanese folklore and ghost stories. Fatal Frame has garnered acclaim for its innovative approach to horror, using the camera mechanic to create suspenseful and immersive experiences. As players progress through the games, they uncover the stories behind the haunted locations and the tormented spirits that they encounter. The games often explore themes of grief, guilt, and the supernatural, contributing to a rich and engaging narrative. Noticeable entries in the series include Fatal Frame number 2, or otherwise known as Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly, that was praised for its haunted atmosphere and emotional storytelling, and the third installment, Fatal Frame 3 The Tormented, which intertwines those fates of different characters throughout the entire game. The series had continued to evolve in subsequent releases, maintaining its reputation for delivering atmospheric horror experiences, despite its occasional gap between releases. Fatal Frame has maintained a dedicated fan base and stands out as a unique contribution to the survival horror genre, and it blends supernatural themes and its gameplay mechanics to create something that the world has never really seen before in a horror video game. Now, the Fatal Frame series has gotten a resurgence due to the fact that it's gotten some re-releases of some of the original games like Maiden of the Black Water, which came out in the year 2014, and also Fatal Frame Mask on the Lunar Eclipse that came out in the year 2008. I highly recommend you getting a chance to play these games if you ever get a chance to, especially since, well, you can play them now on the Switch and PS4 and, of course, PS5. But check out Fatal Frame and you won't be disappointed.
Number 6.
Now, there was no way I was going to leave this next series of games off this list because of its impact on the survival horror genre. The Amnesia video game series, developed by Frictional Games, is a collection of atmospheric and psychologically intense survival horror titles. The series gained widespread acclaim for its ability to invoke fear through a first-person perspective with minimalistic gameplay elements and a strong emphasis on narrative. The debut title, Amnesia: The Dark Descent, that was released back in the year 2010, follows the journey of Daniel, an amnesiac exploring a dark and foreboding castle. The game's innovative use of limited resources and avoidance of direct combat contributes to a sense of vulnerability, making it a pioneer in the survival horror genre. The sequel, Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs, that came out in the year 2013, that was developed by the Chinese Room, maintains the same psychological horror elements but introduces a new narrative and a new gameplay direction. Players unravel a story that is so chilling it involves industrialization, personal deceit into madness, and consequences for unchecked ambition. The series continued with Amnesia Rebirth that came out in 2020, bringing players into the shoes of a new character who awakens in the desert with no memory and desperate need to piece together her past. This installment received praise for its narrative depth, atmospheric tension, and emotional impact. Amnesia's success lies in its ability to immerse players in a suspenseful atmosphere, utilizing darkness, sound design, and psychological horror elements to give a chilling experience. The series has played a pivotal role in the resurgence of interest in the horror genre of gaming and inspires many other titles around the world to give that similar style of gameplay. If you've never checked out Amnesia, please make sure you guys get your hands on these games, because let me tell you, you're going to be scared out of your shoes when you see the game's gameplay. There was no way that I was going to let this series not take the number 5 spot on this list. It's only fitting that Five Nights at Freddy's, or otherwise known as FNAF, would take this spot. The series first bursted onto the scene back in the year 2014, created by Scott Cawthon, and is a unique and influential horror franchise. The gameplay normally centers around surviving night shifts at a haunted pizzeria where the animatronics would turn menacing after hours. In the original game, Five Nights at Freddy's, players assume the role of a security guard, relying on security cameras, closing the doors, and managing the power to ward off animatronics such as Bonnie, Chica, Freddy Fazbear himself, and Foxy. Now, this simple and just crazy overall mechanic in the game made it so suspenseful, where it just basically makes you feel so scared and so intensely just horrifically worried that you're going to get eaten by one of these animatronics. Just makes the game that much more fun. What sets FNAF apart is the storytelling approach, where the series has incorporated cryptic messages, minigames to unravel a dark narrative, and the hidden lore that so many on YouTube have talked about over the years, like MatPat and even Corey Kenshin has played through all the games to show you how fun and crazy this series has gone. Such characters like William Afton, who is the main villain of this series, has grown into a worldwide phenomenon, and how sick and twisted this series has gone because of just him alone. FNAF's success also extends well beyond its games, where novels, merchandise, and even a movie got released back in October. And because of that, this series of games and overall will continue to go on for years to come, hopefully. And maybe we'll see even more movies because, well, the movie's doing absolutely great. Overall, besides just the jump scares about this game and this eerie presence of being inside this office, overall, the game series is absolutely fun to play. It's a chilling experience, especially for the fact that, well, it's not just for kids because it's an animatronic that looks like a bear. Everyone around the world knows about Freddy Fazbear and his friends, but guess what? If you ever go out of town or go anywhere in the world and you don't know or ever heard of Five Nights at Freddy's, people are gonna look at you crazy. And if you've never played this series, I highly recommend you at least try to check it out, especially Security Breach, since that's the latest release.
Number 4.
If dismemberment, gore, blood is too much for you to stomach, then this isn't the series for you. This series has grown into such a phenomenon, it's been very influential onto the survival horror genre of video games. Dead Space is a survival horror franchise that follows the engineer by the name of Isaac Clarke as he battles nightmarish creatures known as necromorphs on derelict space structures. Developed by Visceral Games, the series is renowned for its atmospheric tension, strategic dismemberment combat, and an engaging storyline. As Isaac reveals mysteries surrounding the alien artifacts that he finds, government's conspiracies, and also trying to keep his own sanity, players experience an intense horror and psychological thrills across 3 major titles. The franchise is celebrated for its innovative gunplay, chilling atmosphere, and a compelling blend of sci-fi and horror fanatic series of elements. Now, I've never personally played this series up until literally this year with the new game that just came out, and that really spawned to just be like, you know what, I need to play these original games. But this series is really not for the faint of heart due to the fact that it is nightmare fuel to the utmost extreme. I mean, they go complete 110 on the Richter scale, if anything, if I can even say Richter scale of 110. But the series has been very influential. It's even spawned an animated series, and hopefully maybe we may even see a movie that might come out in live action form. Overall, Dead Space has been very, very popular, and to this very day we may even see the second and the third game get a complete remake, as well as since the first game did as well as it did. Let's just hope and see what happens in the future. But check out Dead Space if you haven't done so yet.
Number 3.
If you thought Dead Space was bad in the sense of gore and blood and just intense violence, then you have never probably ever seen this game, and I've covered this game on this channel a few times. The Outlast series of video games is a horrifying and tragic franchise of games renowned for its intense and visceral experiences. Developed by the company Red Barrels, the series centers around investigative journalists who find themselves in horrifying situations and even supernatural ones at that. In the first game, players assume the role of Miles Upshur investigating Mount Massive Asylum, where disturbing experiences and supernatural occurrences unfold. In the sequel, Outlast 2 introduces players to Blake Lagerman, a journalist investigating the murder of a pregnant woman in the Arizona desert. The narrative weaves elements of religious fascism, psychological terror, and disturbing imagery as Blake faces relentless pursuit and uncovers a dark conspiracy. There's also another game called The Outlast Trials, which is a new game that's going to be coming out very soon, and there was also a DLC for the first game called The Whistleblower. Throughout these games, the series maintains a distinctive found footage style, utilizing the protagonist's camera for night vision and capturing unsettling moments as you explore the grounds that you're on. And the emphasis of stealth, limited resources, and the inability to combat the enemies that chase after you makes the experience that much more horrifying. The Outlast series is praised for its atmospheric design, psychological horror that can literally make your bones chill and your blood just stop, and your heart just will race like it's nobody's business. And I'll tell you this, I've tried to play these games and I can't even get past barely the first one because of how crazy scary that these games can be. If you are wanting a chilling and just crazy experience into the horror genre of video games, this is probably going to be the best that you will ever find. And just overall, to have a good time, if that's what you like, check out the Outlast series of games, and I promise you, you will never be disappointed with how crazy these games can get.
Number 2.
Finally coming into the top 2 spots on the list, and coming in at number 2, there was no way that this series should be in any other spot, at least within the top 3. The Silent Hill series of video games is a critically acclaimed survival horror franchise known for its psychological depth and atmospheric horror. Created by Konami, the series debuted back in the year 1999 and has since been a hallmark in the genre of video games and horror fanatics. Now, this game has gone through so many different changes and has garnered so many sequels to this very day. The first game introduces players to a character by the name of Harry Manson, searching for his adopted daughter Cheryl in the mysterious town of Silent Hill. As players investigate the fog-shrouded streets and alternate and nightmarish dimensions, the narrative unfolds with psychological twists and disturbing revelations. The game's use of psychological horror elements such as outer world transformations and unsettling symbolism set a new standard for the genre itself. Silent Hill 2, often regarded as a masterpiece to so many around the world, follows James as he receives a letter from his deceased wife, drawing him to the town. The narrative develops around a theme of guilt, loss, and even personal demons, creating a haunting and emotionally charged experience for the player. The game's iconic monsters such as the Faceless Nurses and Pyramid Head himself, with also atmospheric sound design and intricate storytelling, contribute to its enduring legacy. Subsequent entries into the series like Silent Hill 3 and Silent Hill 4 The Room continue to explore psychological horror and also intertwining characters and their narratives that makes the series grow exponentially. The series has spawned a film adaptation and various spin-offs such as Homecoming, Shattered Memories, Downpour, and even had the HD collection that came back out for the PS3 back in the year 2012. Of course, we also got the infamous and canceled game PT, which unfortunately we'll probably never see again overall because of the fact that, well, again, it's canceled. But because of PT getting canceled, Silent Hill has kind of gone off the radar for many years up until just recently. We got a new announcement saying that Silent Hill 2 was getting a remake in the upcoming year, hopefully in 2024, and we're also getting a whole new Silent Hill game called Silent Hill F. Overall, the series has impacted the genre and the video game industry in so many ways and is remaining as the staple of horror video games. Silent Hill is a video game series that I have always followed for many years, even though I wasn't really much of a horror fan. But overall, I have to give Konami props for this series because they have literally made video games that much more fun for the horror genre fans. And if you've never played the Silent Hill series of video games, check these guys out, and I bet you're gonna be like, what have I been missing over the years?
Number 1.
And cracking into the number 1 spot, there was no way that I was going to leave this video game series off the list. The Resident Evil series, created by the world-famous Capcom company, is a pioneering and enduring franchise of the survival horror genre. Debuting back in 1996, the series has evolved over the years, blending horror, action, and compelling story narratives. The original Resident Evil introduced the ominous Spencer Mansion, plagued by zombies and biological experiments gone awry. Players control members of the elite task force known as STARS as they uncover the dark secrets of the Umbrella Corporation, setting the stage for a complex and expansive narrative throughout the years. In Resident Evil 2 expanding the scope, featuring 2 playable characters known as Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield, who are very vital to the series. Navigating the zombie-infested Raccoon City, the game's dual story structure and innovative zapping system influenced further entries into the series. In Resident Evil 3 Nemesis introduced a relentless pursuer known as Nemesis, adding a new layer of tension to the series. Meanwhile, in Code Veronica took the series to a remote island, expanding the lore and revealing more Umbrella's sinister activities. The franchise underwent a significant shift when Resident Evil 4 burst into the scene, incorporating an over-the-shoulder perspective and a more action-oriented approach. The game is regarded as one of the best of the series, if not the best in the series, and received critical acclaim for its gameplay mechanics and its atmospheric design, influencing the direction of further installments. Resident Evil 5 and 6 continued that trend, but it wasn't too popular among fans due to the fact that, well, they wanted to see more of a horror statistic route back into the Resident Evil series. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard did just that with Ethan Winters as the new protagonist, and that shifted the series going forward when Resident Evil Village came out as the next installment, continuing Ethan's story. Overall, the series has grown into a cultural phenomenon inspiring movies, novels, and spin-off titles, and even anime. To this very day, Resident Evil will continue to be the staple for horror video games with action-based combat and overall just a series for so many to enjoy. Hey, it's zombies. I mean, who doesn't love zombies nowadays? I mean, Call of Duty out here trying to do zombies in every single installment now, so you might as well keep it going. Overall, Resident Evil will continue to be more than likely the most popular horror franchise in video gaming history due to its influence and overall impact that has made so many other games that are being created to this very day being influenced by how the narrative and the stories have played out. over? Is it over? Okay, cool. Oh, man, the memory's starting to come back. Jeez, I'm gonna have nightmares later tomorrow. But thank you guys for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. Look, your boy here was never truly a horror game fan. Never been a horror fan until maybe just a couple years ago. One of my first horror games I ever played was Resident Evil. And from there on, I liked horror games for what they were in the sense of Resident Evil, but there are some horror games out there that are just wild beyond the imagination. If you are a true horror fan out there and there was a game that wasn't on this list, please let me know in the comment section, because I know there's tons of other horror games out there that are literally just some of the best you could possibly play. I know a lot about video games, but horror games aren't my thing in the full-blown aspect. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't done so, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all the love and support. Like and comment and share with your friends and family. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Love God and love yourself as always. Peace out.